Welcome to Hindu Sanskruti with Vaishali Shah. I'm your host Harleen Jabal. Namaskar Vaishali.
Namaskar, Harleen.
Vaishali, can you explain to the audience what is the purpose of this special series?
The purpose of the show is to make my audience aware of all the work I have been doing, the book series which I have written, the Hindu culture and lifestyle studies. The reason I'm doing this show is because I wanted my audience to know why and how to follow Hindu culture. The biggest problem with us is that, especially NRIs, that when we live outside India, it's very difficult to stay in touch with our root. And when we try to understand and try to follow something, we always have this question at the back of our mind that why we are doing such things. And because we live in a very logical world nowadays, we want to find logic and reasoning about everything what we do. And you will be surprised to know that Indian culture was most logical, most pragmatic, most practical. And the reason we were following it for all these years is because it was working, it is time tested, it is proved, it is eco-friendly, it is very close to the nature, and it is also very close to our human body and the mind. When we want to do certain things in certain ways, there is a logical and practical method behind it.
So you've mentioned you've done book series, and so I want to know your background, or what is that qualification that brings you to at this platform to share this type of knowledge?
Basically, I'm a management graduate.
Okay.
And my initial formal studies were into internet technologies. But for last 20 years, I've been reading and studying various books which are related to scriptures.
Okay.
For example, Bhagavad Gita. If you consider that as a holy book, then it's not enough. If you read it like a management book, then you find hundreds of things which are so practical and applicable in today's life. Similarly, when we go to any wedding and we see the rituals, I used to wonder where they come from. So of course, now I know that they come from Rigveda. So when I used to go to wedding, I used to see they were chanting quite a few mantras, and I used to wonder why and how and where they come from. Today I know that they are part of Rigveda. And for example, when we say logo Satyamev Jayate, so earlier I did not know where it is coming from. Now I know it is part of Mandukya Upanishad. That way I found many practical usage of our scriptures in our daily life. Though earlier lifestyle was something which was completely Vedic and it was more about Vedic rituals and fire sacrifice. Now we have come out of that mode and now we are in a different mode. But then also we are still following a lot of traditions in our life even today, and they are practical and they are helping us out. And that is how I started doing the research. And of course, if you like and if you love books, you can always find out a lot. So that's how I got into it.
So is that why you made a website called hinduscriptures.com? Is that what inspired you?
Yes, it was initially my curiosity because I prepared around 800 questions for which I did not have answer in, I did not find the answers. And then when I looked for it, I realized I need to go and touch base with all the spiritual gurus to understand. And of course, I was not one of them, and I was obviously had no reason to be one of them. So I went there, I went to various ashrams, I collected the information, I digitized them. In my website, you will find around 300 to 400 scriptures we have digitized, and that too in the original form. And when I actually found out that this is something very interesting, much beyond those self-help book, management book, or any scientific books, I thought why not to dwell into it. And then of course I dedicatedly gave 8 to 10 hours a day for all these years, reading and studying and finding it out. And that is how I am different from others, because there are 3 categories of people. One is those who go to Vedic schools and they study everything in Sanskrit, and whole life they are just into it. Maybe they become professors later on, or they become researchers in India. Second category of people is all our priests. Those who help in the temples, they do various pujas for the Yajman, they do all this ritualistic, which we call karma kand. That is what they follow. And maybe the third category, which where I belong to maybe, is where people like me, Deepak Chopra, a lot of other people are there who like to study scriptures more as a management book, more as a science book, more as a content, and not something just as a believer. So I'm more into research, and that is what makes me little bit qualified to at least present something about India, Indian culture and heritage, and of course our knowledge heritage.
It's your passion for sharing this knowledge that has existed for many thousands of years.
Oh yes.
Excellent. So today's topic is the Hindu scriptures.
Right.
So shall we begin with the very foundation? What are the principles? What are these principles of the Hindu religion?
To begin with, first of all, I would like to say that Hindu is not a religion.
Oh, okay.
It's a way of life.
Okay.
Hindu word itself is not described in any scriptures. It was given to this land by the invaders because it was near Hindu Kush, somewhere in Pakistan, Afghanistan, somewhere. And that is how it was called Hindu and Hindustan. And we are stuck with that name as on today. But the correct name would be Sanatan Dharma because we have been existed ever since the earth was created, or ever since you can say universe was created. So the correct word would be Sanatan Dharma. From there, if we start, we have been there for millions of years. It's not 2000 or 3000 or 5000 years. We have divided our time into 4 eras, which is called Satyug, Tretayug, Dwapar and Kalyug. Currently we are into the Kalyug. Around 5200 years have been passed ever since Krishna left the earth, because that is how we are calculating the time.
Okay.
So you can imagine that we have the legacy of millions of years, and from there if we start to understand that where we have come, then this is the time, as I told you. Then we need to understand the traditions, why we are doing certain things and what are the basic principles. So the first principle of Sanatan Dharma, which I defined, is we believe in 4 Veda.
Okay.
So that is our primary source of knowledge, and there is nothing beyond Veda because we don't know when Vedas were written. Of course, we know who wrote them down in a current form, in a script form, because earlier it was only in the sound form. That is the reason it was called Shruti, and now it is in a written form what we have. So all the 4 Vedas are our primary source of information. The second principle is we believe in reincarnation, which is avatar theory, or the Punarjanma, which we call it. Because we believe that a soul transfers from one body to another body according to the karma it has occurred in one life, and that is what it goes from one life to another life.
And karma are actions and doings.
Yes. Then fourth principle is we believe in Guru Shishya Parampara. So the knowledge which we have currently has passed down to us from our gurus who were there for thousands of years. They gave it to their disciples, and then they gave it to their disciples. That is how we have preserved our knowledge. So we have a strong tradition of Guru Shishya in our society. Then there is something called, then I'm sure you know the difference of Indian philosophy and the Western, wherein we believe in the presence of soul, which is very unique to India and Indian belief system. Whereas if you see the Western and the many religions, they don't understand the concept of soul as yet. So this is our Atma, we call it as, is something which we have identified, which is beyond body and the emotions and the mind, and which is what controlling all 3 things in our life, which we don't, which the world is not ready to accept as yet. I'm sure they will do it tomorrow or in future. Then we believe in non-violence very strongly. You will be surprised that in spite of having so many wars within India, we still believe in it. But yes, the core principle is non-violence. But as Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, when there is a problem or attack on your family on your kingdom or on your country, you are supposed to raise arms. You are not supposed to sit quiet and accept it. The another unique thing which we have is 4 ashram.
Okay.
Now 4 ashram doesn't mean we have ashram, but 4 varnashram which we call it as, which is like dharma, artha, kam and moksha.
Okay.
So this is the 4 stages of life which is very unique to our culture. Then we have caste system, which is again very unique to India, though it is being abused a lot, but this is the best thing ever designed for any civilization ever in the world. And of course we will dwell into it in future. So these are the main principles of our Sanatan Dharma on which we stand. At the same time we stand unique and different from other philosophies.
So when it comes to the scriptures part of it, how many scriptures do you have?
I mean, frankly, originally there were thousands and thousands of them, but currently we still have preserved main Vedas, then Puran, 18 Puran, then 6 Darshan Shastra, 9 Upanishad, then we have Upvedas, then we have Itihas. Itihas means history like Ramayana, Mahabharata. Then we have various science-based scriptures like Ayurveda and Patanjali, which talks about yoga. So these many, if you consider, there are still more than like 1,000 scriptures. And then there are many material written by many Sampradaya Guru. So those are completely different lot.
Okay. And how old would you say they are, and who wrote most of them, or maybe give an example, and where exactly did they come from?
As I said earlier, our original scriptures were called Shruti because those saints and those sadhus and those seers, they heard them in sound, as in they heard it in the universe, then they scripted it down on the tadpatri, or we call it as palm leaves, and then of course now since we have books, so they are written down on the books, but that is how they preserved it. Most of the Vedas were written by 7 rishis. Then Puranas and Ramayana and all, many part of the things were written by Vyas Muni, then even written by other seers of that time, like for example I can give you Chaitanya Mahaprabhu of Gaudiya Sampradaya, which is ISKCON as we understand in today's language. They also have written quite a few books of their own philosophy. So that way most of the scriptures are there in today's time. You'll be surprised to know that in 12th century, Bakhtiyar Khilji, who had come to India, he burned down Nalanda University, where I think more than 900,000 scriptures were destroyed. The whole university took more than 3 months to get destroyed. So you can imagine the kind of knowledge we had and the knowledge we have lost. Yes. After that, when British came and the Germans came, they stole all our scriptures and they took it to Germany, and you will be surprised that there is equal amount of research is happening about Indian scriptures in Germany, and sometimes, or maybe even more than India, because they have found a lot of meaningful things in the scripture, and now they are trying to practice. So you can imagine, but we still have preserved quite a lot of them, and it is still available in various Vedic pathshalas, universities, libraries. It's there.
So what is the validity and authenticity of these scriptures that you're talking about?
The best way to understand the authenticity is that whether the scripture is there in the north or the south, the script and the shlokas are same.
Okay.
And it was not the era of internet and travel or internet or whatever. So you can imagine that how strongly it must have been preserved through Guru Shishya Parampara. There's the first maybe logical reason I can give. Second is because this Vedic Pathshala, their principles were so strong and they were so committed to it that they ensured that it doesn't get distorted. Though British really tried to distort it and misinterpret and all that, but they could do it in English version. The original Sanskrit script remained as it is, because there they could not manipulate that time. So all this, if you see the content available in Vedic Pathshalas across India, they all are same. Hardly any different variation you will find. So that's the best way to understand.
So at present, where can they be studied?
Yes, as I said, there are many Pathshalas available in India, and through my website, I'm trying to promote them, give them a platform, make aware about my audience that how they are preserved, why we should support them financially, and even to bring more students to them, and bring them on the mainstream lifestyle.
So you've also mentioned that they are written in Sanskrit. Are all written in Sanskrit?
Yes, yes. Sanskrit is the language from all other Indian languages have originated. So, for example, whether it is a Punjabi, my Gujarati, Hindi, Marathi, mostly the words come from Sanskrit, and that was the language we consider as the language of God. That was the language in which we used to even speak till 200 years back. Our education system was in Sanskrit.
So you've also given an idea of some of the topics that were included in the scriptures. But was there any sort of thought process or structure going on when they were being written?
Oh yes, of course. If you see, I mean, for example, we have geography, history, we have science. We have identified them as a group. Similarly, in the scriptures, they have identified them as various scriptures, and so science is part of it. For example, if you say Darshan Shastra, which is about logic, life, death, and the physical form, so then there is called Nyaya Shastra, so which is talking about justice and related to Nyaya, how, and it's not only about the civil sense, it's about Nyaya between two friends, within the family. I'm just giving you an example. Similarly, in Ramayana, it is all about Ram's Katha, how Ram came and whatever happened with Ram and Sita. But then there is a message about scientific things which happened, why, like for example in Ramayana you will find the presence of Viman, because Ravan came in the Viman. So Viman means, that means the aeroplane was existed.
Okay.
So you can imagine that if we see the story as a story, we will just see it as a fiction. But if you read through properly, you will understand there is so much science involved, there is so much logic involved, and there is so much depth involved in anything what we had. So all our scriptures are divided into various topics like this.
You've just mentioned that Ravan had an aircraft.
Yes.
But there are people who would want to argue and say that Hinduism is mythological. I mean, this can be a story that has been made up. What would you say to that?
Frankly, this mythology and myth word is given to India and Indian knowledge by the Western scholars.
Okay.
Right? First of all, if you ask, if you want to know about, say, Darwin's theory, you would read Darwin's theory, Darwin's books. If you want to know about Newton, you would go and ask Newton that what he had to say. Similarly, when you talk about Indian scriptures, you have to ask and accept what Indian scholars are saying, not the Westerns. So first of all, they were not authorized to write and comment whether it is mythology or it is a reality. Because that way, even we can say Greek is a mythology. We don't know whether it happened or not. But when you go to Rome, they preserve it as if it happened and it was there, and Rome was a big kingdom. So we go there and we accept it. Similarly, when we come to Indian scriptures, Indian belief system, we have to understand as Indian and how we believe and how we portray it. For example, in our scriptures, we have presence of, as I told you, Viman, we had presence of aliens, you'll be surprised. We had presence of various creatures and the demons of different form. The science fiction movies are showing it now, but it was there even thousands of years back. Like what we see Tom and Jerry today, we have Panchtantra where we have animals as character. So this Panchtantra was not created today. It was there for so many years, and that is what we have covered in our book, so that people understand that this is something which we had imagined thousands of years back. This is how we are probably superior in knowledge than others.
So I'm understanding your point of view, that you're saying that someone needs to come to the table and see what the Indian scriptures are all about. But when you come to these scriptures, who was writing them down? What was going on when it comes to some technical aspects? Because there must have been some sort of sequence or method in chronicalizing them?
Yes, you will be very surprised that it is very unique way of writing the scriptures. There is music involved,
Okay.
because then there is a rag of one particular section. Then there is script which was important. Then the rishi who has written it. Then like they used to kind of say that this is written by so and so. Then there was chand was there. In what way, how you have to sing it. So this is something which doesn't happen anywhere in the world. There where music, your structure, your science, your mathematics, everything is involved in writing the scriptures, and that is how it is different from others.
So let's unravel some more mysteries, or as you say, knowledge from the expert now, Vaishali, in our next episode with another topic. This is Hindu Sanskriti with Vaishali Shah. I'm your host, Hailin Jabal.